Welcome back to Moneymonger's channel. Let's talk about tyres. A few months back I made a change of tyres. I swapped out my old tyres, Magic Mary on the front and a Maxxis Minion HR2 on the back, and I made a change to Michelin Wild Enduro tyres front and rear because I'd heard lots of good things about them. I was going to do a wee review of them earlier, but I thought it was only fair that I actually give them a shot in lots of different types of conditions: wet, muddy, dry, steep terrain, rooty terrain, rocky terrain, and I've now done that, so now I feel I can give an honest review of them, and I'll also compare and contrast them to the tyres I've had previously. So let's go on with it. We put our tyres through some amount of abuse. Muddy conditions, over rocks, roots, bouncing about. And so they really are one of the most important things you've got on your bike, is your contact with the ground. And depending on where you ride, depending on the kind of conditions you're riding, what type of tyres you use is extremely important. There's so many fantastic tyres out there, it's hard to decide what to get. Well, what I found is, all the changes I've made to my bike, tyres have had the most significant effect on the way the bike feels. That was great fun. I was a bit all over the place on that one. But this is very unusual conditions for me today. The place is really dry and dusty. In Scotland, obviously, probably about 10 months out of the year, maybe more, that is not the case. This is usually very wet and muddy. The original tyres I had on the bike were called Maxxis Forekaster tyres, which are basically cross-country tyres. And they're great tyres, there's nothing wrong with them, if that's what the kind of riding you're doing. If you live in a place which is dry, or you ride on hard compact surfaces, they're perfect, very fast rolling. They've got very small knobbles, lugs, and they're a very rounded tyre. But with a bit of mud, they just can't cope. And so I had quite a few crashes when I first took up mountain biking because of these tyres. As I say, there's nothing wrong with them, just not suited to the conditions I was riding in. So I made a change. I got a Schwalbe Magic Mary on the front and a Maxxis Minion HR2 on the back. I did a lot of research about those tyres and they seem to be a really good combo. The Magic Mary is very chunky, very big side shoulder lugs, good for gripping into the ground when you're turning. Lots of gripping power, stopping power, which kind of almost makes your brakes seem more powerful because it's gripping into the ground. The Maxxis Minion HR2, again, far more grippy, good side lugs as well, not as big as the Magic Mary, but faster rolling, but also pretty grippy, good for getting off mud as well. Not as good as the Magic Mary, but there's a trade-off to be had, having a faster rolling tyre at the rear, where you might not necessarily need so much gripping power as you do in the front. When my HR2 started to wear out, that's when I made the switch. I thought, even though my Magic Mary still had a lot of life left in it, I thought I'd make the double switch and go for the Michelin Wild Enduro tyres. And as I said earlier, I've now cycled them in all terrains, and this is my review of them. Well, these are 27.5 because that's the size of wheels I've got. This is the Gum X compound, which is a bit softer. They're also 2.4 tyres, so slightly wider than my previous tyres as well, so a bit more contact with the ground, so that was a plus for me as well. When I first got these, it did take me a while to get used to them because they felt quite spongy, they felt really bouncy compared to the Magic Mary. You see, this is quite a smooth sidewall. The Magic Mary has got this ribbing, so it's really firm, and there was none of that sense of squashing, whereas this felt quite as if you're bouncing about to begin with. And they also burped air quite a lot until maybe about the third run out on them. And it was because I had them on properly. Apparently it's a bit of something that just happens with these tyres, I suppose, until the sidewalls get coated enough with sealant, I don't know. But once that cleared up and I got used to them, I really started to enjoy them. If you look at the front tyre, very big chunky shoulder lugs, really good for gripping in, especially when you're turning, and good thick central lugs as well, with good gaps, so it flings off the mud really well in muddy conditions. And I found in dry conditions, even then, it's quite grippy. Not as good as in mud. They seem to be really well designed for mud. Also well designed for going down steep stuff, just get a really good grip on the ground. The rear tyre, the lugs aren't quite as big, but they're still very chunky. Slightly smaller gaps at the back, so the whole thing rolls a bit faster, which you'd expect from a rear tyre. But the reason why I really like the Wild Enduro rear tyre in comparison with the Maxxis Minion DHR2, it is these shoulder lugs. I feel that you get so much more grip when you're turning. Now some people like that sort of feeling of their back wheel sliding about. I don't, especially when I'm coming down steep terrain. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. So to me, I'd rather trade off a bit of speed for grip and that confidence that having a bit of grip gives me. That's a personal preference. The Wild Enduro front tyre, I'll be honest with you, it's no better than the Magic Mary. I think the Magic Mary is a fantastic tyre, and I was actually considering putting Magic Marys in front and back before I made the switch. Not that there's anything wrong with the Maxxis Minion, as I say, it's just a personal preference, but I really did want that extra grip, especially when turning, so I don't feel like my back end's drifting about so much. So I totally recommend these tyres. They're great, especially if you live in a muddy place, because they are designed to shift mud. They do it really well. I've been in really muddy conditions and they shifted it, and I think if I'd had my Maxxis Minion DHR2, sometimes I think I would have crashed because of it, because just that extra slipping at the back just isn't happening, because these shoulder lugs really cut into the ground. So I thoroughly recommend them. But I'd also say I really recommend the Magic Mary and Maxxis Minion DHR2 combo as well. I think it's a great combo as well. So it really comes down to personal preference at the end of the day. If you want to send it really fast and you're comfortable with things sliding about, then maybe go for the Maxxis Minion DHR2 and the Magic Mary. But I would thoroughly recommend these as well. And even the Maxxis Forecasters, again, as I said earlier, it all depends on the terrain you're riding and the conditions you're riding. So it really is horses for courses. Get what's right for you.
I'd be really interested to hear what kind of tyres you use and what qualities you look for in a tyre. Is it all about grip or is it all about speed? Is there any tyres that you'd recommend? Any tyres that you'd say don't go near? Leave it in the comments below, I'd really appreciate it.
Well, I hope this might have been useful to you. Thanks for watching, see you in the next one. Tatty bye.